And we are live. This is Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast. I'm going to do that again just so we get it right off the top. This is the Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast. People might not be familiar with the new name. New name, same pod. It's all the same business, though. This is the Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast, the live and interactive Toronto Raptors post-game show. My name is Sheldon Alexander. Thank you all for tuning in to this on an epic night of Raptors basketball, a great night of Raptors basketball, as we are celebrating a massive victory by your Toronto Raptors as they hand the Dallas Mavericks their first home loss of the season with the 127-116 win. Big game by your boy Spicy P, bouncing back, 31 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. A great game for the Raps, great game for Siakam. Just, you look at this Raptors team, and this was a game in which I thought overall, above all, right as we start off the top here, I thought this was such an important game for the Raptors because they stuck to the game plan. And the game plan was clearly use your dominant presence inside. And they did that. That was the key to this victory for the Toronto Raptors. And I think if you are a Raptors fan, you should be happy with this victory. As I mentioned, this is the Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast, which you can find live after each and every Toronto Raptors game. I know you might be watching this pod right now in a bunch of different places, but a reminder, eventually, very soon, the only places you will be able to watch this podcast live after each and every game will be on Twitter at Can Hoops Daily or on the YouTube page, Canada Hoops Daily. So make sure that you are liked and subscribed and following there and subscribed and all that other fun stuff, because that's where you'll be able to get the podcast live. And of course, if you ever miss us live, you want to catch us on the normal pod, you can do that. Just go to iTunes, or I guess Apple Podcasts, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's how you get down with this, the Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast. And we bring the podcast back because of nights like this. We talk about what we're doing here on the Canada Hoops Daily brand. We're trying to give you everything basketball from a Canadian perspective: news, features, opinions, your daily hoops source, including everything Toronto Raptors, Canada basketball, and NBA Canadian stars, and your WNBA stars. So just know that we got you covered. This is the first project of many to come from the Canada Hoops Daily brand. You will see more on the way, so make sure you like and subscribe. But right now, we're focusing on the Raps. And that was a big win. That was a massive win. Dallas is coming into this game, and Dallas has been playing really well so far, right? The Mavs were 6-1 coming into this game. They're 3-0 at home. You know, Kyrie and Luka were balling, but the other big thing was these guys were just splashing threes. They're running teams out of the gym. And the one thing that you got to give the Raps credit for was the fact that they continued to keep playing. I say that because the Mavs had a tendency to fall behind early and then make comebacks late. The Raptors did not fall for that. The Raptors just kept gunning. The Raptors kept playing hard, and that earned them this big victory to get them back to 500 at 4-4 on the season. And you looked at the Raptors schedule at the start of the year, and it was a tough sched. And if you're looking at it saying you're 8 games in and you're 4-4, you take that. You definitely take that. This is a big win for the Toronto Raptors. So people who might not be familiar with what we do on the pod, the chat is open. Wherever you're at, send in your comments and questions, because this is your show, live and interactive. I'll answer questions. I'll read your comments on the show, because we want to be the pulse of the fan base. What's the fan base thinking? That's what we want to be about here on this podcast. So at first, while everyone gets their comments in, I'll go through, recap the game, give you my thoughts, give you my insights, maybe ask you some questions along the way, and then I will read your comments and take your questions. So make sure you're always tapping in to wherever you are listening to this podcast live, because we appreciate that. So as we get started here, as mentioned, Raptors, big win, 127-116. Spicy P doing it big, and Spicy P was doing it big from the get-go. Big key off the front end. The rookie center, Lively, for the Dallas Mavs, not in the game. And you got to give the coaching staff and the Raptors team credit because this kid has been balling for the Mavs, and he has been the defensive presence the Mavs have not had, I mean, since probably Tyson Chandler was still around. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't had that prototypical defensive center, the person to hold down their defense. And this kid was getting a block a game. Under the weather, not in this game. Raptors take advantage of it because that meant they could dominate the paint inside, and that's what they did. But I got to give credit to your man Spicy P off the front end because I thought to start the game, he came out hella aggressive. And I think it was pretty big because of the game that Pascal had on Sunday, where people, all the talks about, is it Scotty's team? Is it Pascal's team? Does it have to be Scotty's team right now? What's Pascal got to do? And I'm going to go back to a couple things that I said on this pod on Sunday. So, I say this for the people that ride with us and enjoy the conversation that we continue to build on the pod, right? So one of the things we talked about were what were the ways that Pascal can find his way within this offense. One of the things I talked about was running the floor, pushing the pace, going back to that Spicy P that we saw in the championship season. And what I mean by that is if you remember that season, which funny enough was the last time the Raptors won a game in Dallas. But if you go back to that season, the way that Pascal played, right? He would get easy buckets just by running the floor, pushing the pace, getting out in transition, getting out and running the floor, beating his guy down the floor, getting easy layups, but everything was in the paint. And he worked inside, then outside. That was the key to Pascal Siakam. That's what we talked about on Sunday that we weren't really seeing yet. But in this game, my guy was just on point. Early on in this game, OG knocks down 2 threes, which was huge because he obviously had 7 threes in the last game. So he continues his strong play. Luka's going to do his thing. Luka's going to get his points. Kyrie also doing his thing. Haven't mentioned Kyrie yet. He had you watch Kyrie Irving play basketball sometimes, and he's like a wizard. He's like a magician. If he could just play basketball for a full season, he'd be really, really good. More on that later. But let's stick with Spicy P because I think that's a really, really big thing. Raptors were down early, but we mentioned Pascal, right? And early on, I feel like Dallas, they're shooting, they're hitting threes, and that's their way of trying to bury teams. That's how they're going to play. They're going to try to play fast with Kyrie and Luka. They're going to drive, try to get paint touches, and hopefully the shooters around Kyrie and Luka can knock down the shots. Coming into this game, the Mavs, okay, this was big. First in the NBA in three-pointers made, 3-pointers attempted, second in the NBA in three-point percentage, and in percentage of points from 3-point field goals. Bottom line, they shoot a lot of threes. And the trap here, if you were the Raptors, was do you fall into the trap of trying to get into a 3-point shooting contest with the Mavs? That's the trap, right? I mean, that might be the trap of the whole entire NBA at this point as we watch basketball in 2023. But I feel like in this game in particular, you needed to avoid falling into that trap of just trading 3-pointers because that's going to be tough sledding for you. You're talking about a team that gets 42% of their points from 3-point field goals. That's insane. That's an insane number. 42%, right? So you think of that and they're taking threes, they're making threes. Can you keep up with that? Well, how do you beat that? We talked about the advantages the Raptors had and what they had to do to take advantage of the lack of size that Dallas had, especially in this game. So Siakam running the floor, getting on the glass. My guy was very active in the paint, rebounding as well, getting those easy buckets. All of a sudden, my guy had 10 quick points. Everything was in the paint. First quarter, the Raptors were down 33-27, but Siakam had a quick 10. OG had 8. The Mavs, the biggest problem was the Mavs on offense were shooting 61% early. And it was all just layups and open threes. And if you're the Raps, you know they're a good defensive team when they focus and they decide to play defense. So you trust in the fact that Dallas isn't going to shoot 61% for the whole game, right? Next thing I want to talk about, because Spicy P came out big, and we'll get back to Spicy P for sure. But as we go through chronologically in this game, your man's Chris Boucher. If you follow me on Twitter, you know one of my favorite things is let Boucher cook. And it's kind of facetious. I'm half joking. I'm half serious because Chris Boucher is an adventure. He checks into the game and he's trying to get busy right away. And I feel like Chris Boucher in doses is the perfect bench player. You want him to provide energy, and he does that night in, night out. Does he take a couple shots that might be ill-advised? Yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, I feel like you'll take his energy coming in, getting on the offensive glass, grabbing rebounds, being a defensive presence, blocking shots. You'll take that if you're the Raps, and especially a team that so far this season, we know two things. We know Darko wants to play his bench, right? We know that. We also know that he's struggling to figure out what exactly that bench rotation will be. Precious, we know, is supposed to be a major part of this rotation, and he's been injured for the last 5 games. He might be coming back soon, though. They honestly thought he might play tonight. He did not. So if you're Chris Boucher and you're seeing that, you know that you haven't played in a bunch of games, back-to-back DNPs for him. You're seeing Otto Porter get some minutes. You've seen McDaniels get some minutes. You're Chris Boucher. You got to be thinking, are my minutes in trouble? Like, what's going on here? Because all Chris Boucher has done for the majority of his career with the Raptors, right? And I'm talking like post-championship, once he started to earn and get consistent minutes. There's been moments where he's been inconsistent for sure, like with his play. But once Nick Nurse gave him, some minutes consistently and emphasized what his role was, Chris Boucher has been tough to get out of the Raptors rotation. And I feel like if you look at Chris Boucher now, some of those shots he was taking, you probably don't like. But they're going in. My guy was 4 for 4 in this game, right? But the shot selection is always going to be questionable. But if my guy's running up and down and grabbing rebounds and playing defense, I'm going to live with one bad shot. I'm going to live with that. I'm going to be like, okay. And I think the team kind of gets that too. When you start getting into the running hook shots in the lane, that might be a little iffy. You know what I'm saying? Chris Boucher has those moments, but he's entertaining. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't get how Chris Boucher is not in this rotation. I feel like Chris Boucher provides more off the bench than Precious does on a consistent basis. Also adding in that Precious is consistently hurt. So that's one thing I'm always curious about, like how Precious always finds himself in the rotation ahead of Boucher. I never really understand that. But Chris Boucher, when given opportunity, he puts up numbers. He had 10 points in this game in 15 minutes. That's after being a DMP CD for 2 straight games. So credit to Chris Boucher. Just wanted to shout him out, give him some love because he was on the glass. He was getting rebounds. He was part of a Raptors bench that also included Gary Trent Jr., who was getting busy in this game. He had 16 in this one. And also Malachi Flynn playing solid minutes. Malachi Flynn, which we will get to because there are certain moments where Flynn really proved to be a valuable backup point guard for the Raps tonight. So if we go back to this second quarter, right? Luka's getting a lot of calls. We understand that. But the Raptors were staying in this game and keeping close because they were dominating the paint. They continued to dominate the paint. The Raptors shot 56%, okay, in that second quarter. Led at the half, 62-58. Siakam and OG both had 16. Gary off the bench with 10. Siakam, here's the thing to further emphasize this point, right? At halftime, Pascal Siakam was 8 for 15, but he was 0 for 4 from 3. Do you see what I mean? These were the stat lines. I remember, and our OG listeners will remember me. It almost sounds like I could hit play on our old episodes of the pod when I used to talk about this all the time about starting inside for Siakam and then going out to the 3-point shot. But, the need for you to shoot those shots, sometimes there's a reason why you're open. And I'm not saying that as a diss to Pascal, definitely not. But I'm saying it as when you're having such success driving to the cup, just keep doing it over and over again and make them stop you. And clearly, they couldn't stop him in this game. But, if you're Darko at halftime, you just go in and show him that stat sheet, right? 8 for 11 from the floor for 2-pointers, 0 of 4 from 3. Sometimes the mathematics is just that simple, right? Paint touches, paint touches, paint touches. The Raptors got out to a 42-16 advantage in the paint to start this game. One person I haven't mentioned yet, or a lot, is Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, I thought, had an interesting game. At halftime, Scotty Barnes had just 2 points in this game. But the thing that was interesting to me, and another theme that I love so much as we talk about stats, and, I'm not the stat nerd to like get deep diving into like the true shooting percentage and all that stuff, and even the points per game and all that. My whole thing with statistics is like understanding what these stats are telling you, right? And there's certain stats, like if I tell you Scotty Barnes had 2 points at the half, you're gonna be like, what was he really doing there? Like he struggled. He didn't really have a good half. I go the opposite way because when you look a little further down the stat sheet, my guy had 4 steals, 2 assists. 4 steals, 2 assists, and a block. And for me, steals, rebounds, blocks, those are stats that are hustling. It's showing me that you are present. You are in the game. You are involved in the game. You are doing work. It's not all about points, right? And especially when Spicy P and Gary Trent off the bench and OG are going off. If you're Scotty Barnes, hey, this is a reason why people love his game so much. It's because he can contribute in so many different ways. And so in a half where he struggled shooting, didn't really shoot well, he found other ways to contribute until the end of the game. When you then look up and you look at Scotty Barnes' stat line and you say, 14 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. What a game for Scotty Barnes, right? And it's funny how that works when you don't just focus in on, he's scoring so much more now. So Raptors leading at half. But the key was that you had to be on guard. And I'm sure this was mentioned at halftime in the Raptors locker room. Dallas was outscoring opponents by 12 points this season in the second half, right? It's a big time stat because also this game tonight represented the 7th time that Dallas had been trailing this season at halftime. Meaning, if you're the Raps, you got to be ready because Dallas was going to come out and try to take over as they've done so often this season. But eventually, maybe on the flip side, the basketball gods catch up to you and you're not going to be able to do what you think you're able to do if you're Dallas and you're playing with fire when you're down so many times in the first half. Eventually, that's going to catch up to you, and it caught up to them tonight. So third quarter, Siakam continued his hot streak. He just continued cooking and everything was downhill. And the interesting part at that point was thinking the way how the NBA works, right? And a peek behind the scenes. When you go into an NBA locker room during the season, right? You're going to see the team that they're playing against, their last game is on the monitor, right? Like that game's playing in the locker room. And you're going to see the scouting report on the board. And the one thing people talk about all the time is whose name is at the top of the scouting report. And if you think about the Toronto Raptors and what the narrative has been the past few days, it's been, is this Scotty Barnes' team? Is this Scotty Barnes' team? Scotty Barnes taking the leap. And so you could easily, if you're the Mavs, you're coming in and you're focusing on, okay, we got to slow down Scotty Barnes. This is what we got to focus on. This is what we got to do. And I felt like in this game, Pascal Siakam was kind of reminding everyone, wait a second, you're going to take your best defender and put him over there on someone else? Okay, let me remind you, I'm the all-NBA dude. And I think that he looked at his matchup, and especially when they tried to then put Grant Williams on him, I felt like Pascal was getting his revenge for remember in the bubble when the Raptors had that series against the Celtics And Grant Williams, like Pascal, for whatever reason, he struggled in that series, but he couldn't get around Grant Williams. Grant Williams did such a great defensive job on Pascal. I felt like this was Pascal's revenge because Pascal just could not be stopped. He had the full repertoire. How often this season have we been seeing Pascal get the ball in the post and just hit him with the drop step spin move and just get the easy two? I think we saw that like 3 or 4 times in tonight's game. And that's the spicy P that we're talking about. That's how you're going to get buckets on this team the way that it's currently set up. Because it's not about, is it Scotty's team? Is it Pascal's team? It's about, how do all these pieces fit in? And so when I go back to Pascal playing with Kawhi and those championship teams, Pascal had to run the floor. Pascal would get paint touches. He would dominate inside. He'd get on the offensive glass. That's how he'd get a lot of his points. It wasn't all about high usage, ISO, dribble, step back, jumper. That wasn't it. So it's going to be interesting to see consistently what we see from this Raptors team in terms of an offense, right? Because the other guy who also steps up, OG Anunoby, hitting massive threes for the Raps. It seems like every time there's a little comeback or a little mini run made by the Mavs, OG would hit a three. And that's kind of been a theme this season for the Toronto Raptors, who just continued to run, continued to cook. In that third quarter, 11-0 run for the Raps as they continue to extend the lead. And then out of a timeout, Scotty Barnes, who, again, offensively didn't shoot the ball well, but he got on the glass. And I thought this little mini run that Scotty had in the third quarter, where he was able to grab a rebound, throw the dunk back in, then the next time down the floor, back to bully ball in the paint, straight to the cup, 4 straight points. Gary Trent hits a three. Magically, the Raptors are back up by 10. And I thought that was a sign where, you see Kyrie going downhill, Luka going downhill, a couple 3-pointers go in for the Mavs. You might have some teams. This is how they've come back against certain teams this season, right? Kyrie goes on a little move, Luka goes on a little move, and then all of a sudden, boom. What do you know? Next thing you know, all of a sudden, the run that the Mavs are on, they're right back into the game. And instead, what we saw was the Raptors coming out of a timeout, just calm and cool, sticking to their game plan, and Malachi Flynn giving them good minutes. He hit a three right before the buzzer at the end of the third quarter that gave the Raptors a 99-88 lead after 3 quarters. And I thought that, Pascal Siakam just did work in that third quarter to maintain the lead. It's like the pep talk in the room was about, hey, be ready, be ready, be ready. And Pascal was ready. After that third quarter, 62-26, the Raptors were leading points in the paint. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Fourth quarter starts. OG finds Malachi. Malachi hits another three. And I thought he had great minutes in this game. Because again, it's not all about points. It's about leading the offense. It's about, getting everybody in their right spots, getting everyone the ball, settling everything down, right? Maintaining whatever the starters have done. I thought Malachi Flynn did a really good job while also doing a bunch of other little things, whether it was his 4 assists or 4 rebounds. Again, rebounding stats to me, especially with guards, like that just shows how involved you are in the game, right? How locked in you are to the game. And I just thought Malachi did a great job in his backup minutes, and that gives you more confidence to step in and knock down threes. By that point, to me, this game was over. OG had a huge slam on the baseline. I thought that was dope. Scotty Barnes, coast to coast, and one. He's screaming, extended the lead into 14. Raptors went up big. Mavs were done. Got to give credit to Scotty Barnes. I just thought that, at one point it was a 70-30 lead points in the paint for the Raptors. I'm not sure what the final numbers are. Someone will probably put it in the chat, but the Raptors just stuck to the game plan, realized they had the advantage inside, and dominated that. And to me, that's good coaching. That's really, really good coaching and communication, because it's one thing to come up with the game plan and have the game plan. It's another thing to communicate that to your team and have them then turn around and execute it. That's what we saw from the Raptors tonight. And that's what we saw in terms of a massive, massive win for the Toronto Raptors as they beat the Dallas Mavericks 127-116. And again, the Raptors now improved to 4-4 on the season, and you'll take that after 8 games for the Raps. And it's been up and down. There's been times where they looked really great, and there's been times when they've looked not so great. And I think, a big time comeback against the Spurs, being able to get that dub, and then now being able to get that win against the Mavs, that's huge. Huge, huge, huge for the Raps. And maybe you can build some momentum. They got Boston on Saturday, pardon me. And that's another big game, right? We know Boston, that's a division matchup, division rival, super familiar with the Boston Celtics. Always comparisons over the years about Siakam versus Tatum or Siakam versus Jaylen Brown. Obviously, we've seen the Celtics in the finals and conference finals. Raptors trying to get back there. How Scotty Barnes fit into this narrative. Like, that game is going to be a big one on Saturday for the Raps. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But in terms of tonight, Raptors win back-to-back games for the first time this season. Siakam, as mentioned, 31 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. OG Anunoby, 26 points, 5 rebounds. Dennis Schroeder chipping in with 18 points. And let me talk about Dennis for a second. I think he's had such a great season so far because the term get in where you fit in. I feel that's what Schroeder has done this season. He's not doing too much. He's not over dribbling. He's moving the ball. He picks his spots when he's going to drive the lane. He's been very efficient this season. He's getting assists, but he's not dominating the ball at all. It just seems like has the right level of fit for what the other pieces are on this team. He's not trying to do too much. And I think by not trying to do too much, 18-5, that's a nice game from Schroeder. Efficient, 7 of 13. I don't know, man. I got to be honest. His play has exceeded my expectations. They're getting a lot more out of Dennis Schroeder than I thought. But I also think a big part of that, especially in a game like tonight, 30 minutes, right? It's not 39 minutes. And I think that part is really key. And listen, Scotty Barnes led the team in minutes with 39, Pascal with 37, OG with 36. And I get that, and that's okay. But a lot of bench minutes, and I think that's good for the Raptors. That's where they want to be. That's how Darko wants to play. And it's working. It's working. Massive win for the Toronto Raptors. Huge shouts to all the people in the chat. I see the comments filling up. I will get there very shortly. I just want to give a reminder for the people to know that if you are watching this pod, wherever you're listening to this pod right now, just know that going forward, the only way that you'll be able to tune into this show live will be at YouTube or on YouTube at the Canada Hoops Daily page. Okay. So make sure you subscribe there. That's how you know when we'll be up. Hey, you can put us up on your big screen TV, sit back and watch Postgame, right? Also, you can watch on Twitter at Can Hoops Daily. Those will be the only 2 places where you will be able to watch this show live. Send in your comments and questions, listen live, and be a part of the show. Right now, you might be watching in different places. And if it's not the 2 places I just named, just know you better find those 2 places I just named if you want to watch this show in the future live. And of course, if you ever miss us live, don't worry. We got you covered on Apple and Spotify. Just look out for the Canada Hoops Daily brand. That is where you will find the Wrap It Up Pod. Huge shouts to Canada Hoops Daily for bringing back the Wrap It Up Pod. That was the only way that I was going to bring back the pod. So shouts to the people at Canada Hoops Daily for bringing us back indeed. And shouts to you, the listeners, the followers. The feedback has been great. All these messages of people saying they're happy the pod's back. That hits me. That makes me feel good. I appreciate that. And, it makes me feel good about bringing back the project. And, it's just been a lot of fun. So thank you. And, continued watching, happy watching, something like that. Sorry, I struggle on the complimenting, my work and stuff. That's just odd to me, but I'm trying to promote the pod and say thank you to you, the fans, the viewers, the people who really make this show. Not me. I'm just a schlub that has the microphone. Right. Anyways, let's get to some comments here. And I see I got something here. Exodus Movement says, Sheldon, you did notice Scotty didn't even want to shoot the open threes after missing a few. I did notice that, and I think that's a good thing. You don't like, hey, if you don't have it tonight, that's okay. There's no need for you to attempt, 4 threes every single night. I'm okay with that as Scotty Barnes. What else do we got here? My guy Chris Tran. Yo, shouts to Chris. What's up? Huge shouts to Chris Tran, my guy. Chris says Flynn looking smooth, great team win. Totally agree. And this is a team that Darko wants to see. He wants to see backup minutes from Malachi, which he got, and Malachi figuring out how to contribute. Malachi, I didn't even mention this, and that's a knock on me here. Malachi's defense that he's playing on Kyrie, picking him up full court, that's amazing. That's, that also, it's something that can't be, there's no stat to quantify the effect that that has on Kyrie, but you're taking a little bit out of him, making him have to break a full court press like that. Shouts to my guy Brandon, who says good road win. Definitely. Jack talked about it on the broadcast about how the Raptors really struggled on the road last season. So to get a good win or back-to-back good wins on the road early in the season, that's a good look for a team like this. So if you're the Raps, that's huge. And, I really just think that that's a really good sign. You really know that a team is for real. You really know that you have a good team if you could win on the road. And they did that. Colin says those 2 threes that Flynn hit were massive. Happy to see him playing like he's not on a short leash. Colin, that's a great point. Because, there's nothing worse than if you have to go out there and play and you're just worried about making a mistake, right? You're playing hesitant, right? Like Malachi Flynn has offensive skills, right? But now if you come on the floor and you're worried about, oh no, if I miss this shot, am I going to get subbed out? That's not how you want to be playing. And so it's good for Malachi, and it's good that Darko did this from the start of the year to give him confidence, to let him know, hey, you are going to play. So don't worry about the one mistake you might make. That's okay. Just keep going. And I think that part's huge. And we've seen that from the Raps this season, that Malachi has steadily improved, right? He's slowly starting to find different ways to contribute as well, because there's other ways. Once you get more minutes as well, you learn that there's other ways for you to earn your minutes, right? It's not just about, okay, well, I'm only going to get a quick run here, so I better hit a shot. No. If you're getting extended run, you're going to lay out and try to get that offensive rebound, or you're going to crash the glass on the defensive end. You're going to guard Kyrie full court because you can tire yourself out because you're not saving your legs for that one shot that you need to make, because if you miss it, you're afraid you're getting subbed out. It's just great to see that from Malachi Flynn. Jeremy says, Spicy P back from the dead. Jeremy, you were with us on the last pod, so you know everything that we were talking about, right? In terms of Pascal Siakam and the great job that he did in terms of just, being aggressive from the get-go, but everything being downhill. Pascal Siakam is a different player when everything is downhill, and that's a Pascal that we saw tonight, and hopefully that's a Pascal we will continue to see. Let's see here. We got stepping coming to fruition tonight. Gary hitting shots, great interior passing, Flynn becoming more confident, and Scotty facilitating. Great game there. Yes. Hold on. Another comment. A 3-headed beast of OG, Scotty, and Pascal playing great is what Masai envisioned. Yeah, I mean, listen, the biggest thing with this Raptors team, going back to last year, were just about fit. How do all these guys fit together? What's the spacing like on the court? What are the positions that they're going to occupy? And if you are able to figure that out, obviously, they're 3 really good players. So can they figure it out? And on a night like this, where if you're Scotty Barnes and you see Pascal's got it cooking, you see OG's got it cooking, okay, you'll notice Scotty didn't really step in and take that deep 3 that we've been seeing him. What did he call it? The step back? The step back him? What did he call it? Dennis Schroeder told everyone what he said in the huddle? I don't remember. Someone in the comments will tell me. But the point is, you didn't see that three taken from Scotty till late. He missed it bad. But my point is, he wasn't forcing it early because he didn't have to. The other two dudes were cooking, so let them cook. Got to give Scotty credit for that. Tammy says, prepared. So prepared. I watched the 30-point comeback. Okay. Well played. Serious question. How the hell was there such a differential in the paint? Love it. As I talked about it earlier, Tammy, and you probably sent this question before I said this, but it's good to go over again because I feel like it's such a big thing. It's coaching, right? Like if you have a coach that's emphasizing something, like you could tell, right? Like we've watched enough Raptors basketball. We've seen enough Pascal, OG, and Scotty Barnes games to know that at times these guys can fall in love with the jump shot, whether it's a 3-point shot or whether it's a long two. We also know that these guys can fall in love with over dribbling. Clearly, there's a point of emphasis tonight that was drive to the paint. And it can't just be a coincidence that Dallas's big guy was out. And so by coincidence, the Raptors decided that they're going to drive in. No, I'm going to give Darko credit and his staff credit and give the players credit for executing what had to be the game plan. What else do we got here? Jeremy says Boucher is much better than Precious, in my opinion. I feel like Precious keeps getting more chances than Boucher, and I don't know who's better, but I feel like from what I need from one of them, which is to be energy off the bench, clearly Chris Boucher's resume matches that more than Precious's. I feel like Precious, when he's on, Precious is incredible. You wonder, should you be starting Precious? The problem is consistency. Chris Boucher, when you check him into the game, you don't got to worry about his consistent energy because he's going to be involved in the game. And I feel like if I'm building a team, that's what I want from one of my bench guys. I want you in the mix. I want you to be all over the place and, just getting the ball, being involved in the play, getting on the offensive glass. How many times is Chris Boucher on the floor, right? Chris Boucher is getting picked up off the floor multiple times a night. And that's just hustle, right? That's just what my guy's doing. It's an interesting thing to see from Chris Boucher because I feel like he every year, like we've seen this, because it maybe wasn't last year, but it might have been the year before, where the start of the season, Boucher wasn't getting much minutes, and then he had to earn his minutes again. And then midway through the year, you had to put him in. Someone says Boucher has a higher IQ. I don't even know if it's I mean, I don't know, right? Like that's the stuff that you'd have to ask people closer to the team to be able to tell you, like that part of it. But I really just think it's mindset. Boucher is always going 100 miles an hour, which like your problem is I'd much rather have to rein someone in from being so hyped coming off the bench than having to gas someone up. And I feel like that's the difference between the two. Precious, at times, you got to gas him up to give you a little bit more energy and get on the offensive glass and block shots at the defensive end. Whereas Boucher's just coming in and that's what he's doing, right? You might got to rein him in and be like, hey, man, you don't need to shoot that three, but that's okay. You can work with that, right? You can work with that. More comments here. What else do we got here? Chris Boucher is hardly ever hurt. That is true. Tammy calls him a skinny bastard. I mean, Chris Boucher is rarely ever hurt. It's true. And it's not because he's avoiding contact. It's definitely not the reason why. MC Maestro says, Darko reading the game well. He knew Pirtle could not keep up with the pace of this game and kept high energy Boucher in. Yeah, in-game adjustments, in-game management, or managing in the game. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's a huge part of coaching that gets underlooked, right? Or overlooked, pardon me. I'm tired and it's midnight. That's what happens when you get these like 8:30 games, right? It's midnight now and we're doing the pod. But I think Darko, being able to adjust in the game and figure out, okay, this is a lineup that's going to work better against his team. Got to give him credit for that. More comments here. What do we got here? The headline is Raptors got a deal out of the bargain bin with Chris Boucher. I guess so. I mean, Chris Boucher keeps doing the job, and I like that they re-signed him. What else we got? Siakam saw my video I did on him yesterday, and he took it personal. Says Toronto Yardy. I hope you didn't diss Pascal too much, because hey, listen, people that follow this show know that I'm not really here for the like wild hot takes after every game, right? Like that's like, don't get too high, don't get too low. It's just, look at what's going on, understand what's going on, and never let one game like sway you way too much. Because that's not the reality. The reality of the NBA season is that there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And overall, you're hoping to see some level of progression from your star players. So because Pascal Siakam only had 8 points in the last game, does that mean he sucks all of a sudden? No. Does that mean that the Raptors don't like Pascal anymore and they should trade? No. Pascal's still there. Pascal's still able to get busy. Pascal, it's 8 games into the season. I think that's what I ended the pod talking about, right? It's so early for people to be worried about what's wrong with Pascal. Should we get rid of him? Did we waste time and not trade him because trade value's down? No. 31, 12, and 5. Giving the Mavs straight work. Good night for Pascal Siakam. My guy Ngozi says, honestly, was worried about this road trip. This team is showing character. And my goodness, the difference in paint points this game. Raps played bully ball, and I'm here for it. Yes, Raptors definitely playing bully ball. And I thought that was a huge key to this game. That was the difference in this game because Pascal did his dirt in the paint. OG was driving, getting to the cup as well. Scotty, once he started getting it going, that all happened in the paint. Everything was downhill. Even Schroeder late, Schroeder making moves, getting jiggy, getting into the lane, doing his best Kyrie impression. I just thought it was great. Scott says, great statement win. I know it's early, but it feels like the Raptors are back. Love that Darko has unlocked Malachi and Otto. Also, Grant Williams is goofy for caressing Schroeder's chin. Grant Williams is a character, right? Like, if you're not familiar with Grant Williams' work, I point you to last season, that game when he was on the Celtics where he gets fouled late and he says he's going to make all the free throws to win the game. And then he proceeded to miss all the free throws and lose the game. Do you remember that? You can Google it. I mean, it's bottom line is Grant Williams, he's always doing the most. So, I mean, yeah. In terms of the Raptors, though, Malachi getting good minutes and Otto Porter Jr. getting minutes. It's something to talk about. Hey, my longtime listeners will know. Grown-ups and how important grown-ups are to have in your lineup because you can just trust them to be in the right place, to make the right play, or just to not mess something up, right? All else is equal. They're going to be in the right position defensively. Grown-ups, very key. And even if you're talking about Precious versus Otto Porter Jr., right? It's the same thing. They probably shoot the three. Otto Porter is probably a better three-point shooter. Precious is more, athletic and probably should be able to give you more. But if he's inconsistent, I know the vet, the grown-up, I know what that person's going to give me consistently. It's going to be interesting to see, though, once Precious comes back, which I think could be against Boston, because I feel like they'd want to get, if Precious is okay, you want to have as many people to be able to throw at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And Precious would probably be in that lineup as well as one of those people, along with OG and Scotty and Pascal, right? You want to have a lot of your long athletic wing players or defenders active in that game for Tatum and Brown for sure. But yeah, massive win for the Toronto Raptors. This one was really big. And there's so much talk to start the season about what the Raptors would be like, what kind of team would they have. And I think it's just a reminder that you got to just give everything time, right? Like there's no point in stressing out. There's no point in making it something where, you're worried about it after one game, or they look really bad against Portland, or they look really bad in the first half against the Spurs, because it's a long season, a very long season. And your hope is just that you give it time, and with time, it'll all make sense. It'll all sort itself out. And so far, if you're the Toronto Raptors, you take a 4-4 start. You got to take a 4-4 start. Again, Raptors win, Raptors win, Raptors win. 127-116 over the Dallas Mavs, handing them their first home loss of the season and only their second loss of the season overall, as the only other game they've lost was to the defending champion Denver Nuggets. I'm just saying, Raptors fans. I'm just saying. I'm just stating a matter of fact. Not taking it anywhere else other than that. Just stating a matter of fact. The last time the Raptors were able to win in Dallas was 2019 when the Raptors won an NBA championship. Again, I'm just stating a matter of fact. I'm not telling you to take any conclusions from those things. Just stating the facts. The biggest fact of the night: Raptors win 127-116 behind your man's Pascal Siakam. 31 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. OG Anunoby also chipping in with 26 points, 5 rebounds. Dennis Schroeder, 18 points. Scotty B might have had an off shooting night, but proving his full value because there's other ways to contribute, even if your shot is not going well. Scotty Barnes with 14 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. Just an amazing game. It's not even like Luka had a bad game either. Luka had 31, 8 and 7. Luka had 4 steals. Didn't even know Luka balled like that. Okay. Kyrie also had 31. Just an epic offensive game in Dallas. And the Raptors were able to do their thing. Why? Because they stuck to the game plan and had everything going to the paint. Beautiful win. And Gozy says, plan the parade. Oh, man. Obviously, you know what I'm joking around. You know what I'm doing here. MC Maestro says, Sheldon is like our Raptors Yoda to bring balance to the force with his takes. Listen, you just can't freak out. The NBA season's long. Just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the fact you have good players. Enjoy the fact that regardless of what happens this season with Pascal, with OG, with Gary Trent Jr., it's going to be entertaining. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's in everyone's best interest for all of them to have great years, right? Whether you decide that you're going to trade Siakam or not, it's in everyone's best interest for him to have games like tonight. So I know the whole fan base after the last game where he only had 8 points and everyone's like, oh, it's Scotty's team. It's Scotty's team. It's like, okay, cool if you think that, but this is not the outcome you want with Siakam struggling, right? It's not. This is the outcome you want with Siakam getting busy. Tammy clarifying, bargain bin was in reference to Dennis Schroeder, not Chris Boucher. Yes, that is a great call, as Dennis Schroeder clearly was the backup plan after they did not get Fred VanVleet. They're able to sign Schroeder on the cheap, and he's been anything but a cheap point guard for your Toronto Raptors. So, Raptors win, Raptors win, Raptors win. 127-116. Huge thanks to the people tuning into this podcast. There we go. Thought I hit the music already. Didn't click in. But there it is. The music is there, which means those sounds tell you that this is the Wrap It Up podcast. Huge shouts to everyone listening. I'll give you another reminder again. Make sure you subscribe to Canada Hoops Daily on Instagram at Canada Hoops Daily, on Twitter at Can Hoops Daily, and of course the YouTube page Canada Hoops Daily. Make sure you follow, because that is where you can get this show live after each and every Toronto Raptors game. Yes, we are back. Wrap It Up podcast is back. Special shouts and thanks to the Canada Hoops Daily crew for bringing the pod back, bringing the vibes back. And I'm going to be honest with you. We brought the vibes back, and the Raptors vibes seem to be a little higher. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. but let's all enjoy the ride together right here on the pod. And if you ever miss us live, just know you can keep up with us on the podcast feed, Canada Hoops Daily, available on Apple and on Spotify. Huge shouts to everyone for tuning in. And I close every pod like I always do, because I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is Canada Hoops Daily presents Wrap It Up Podcast, available everywhere you get your podcast. And as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.